So just the other day, I had a client ask me, should I hand off my bank account? Should I hand off my email inbox? Should I hand off my passport? There's, I think, a lot of fear for entrepreneurs, my former self included, around topics like inbox, calendar, and giving access to our assistant to all of that. And I think, hey, if we're gonna looking at the downside of what could happen if we hand off our, bank account, let's say. If we're going to take stock of the downsides, we also have to look at what are the downsides if I don't hand off my inbox, I don't hand off my bank account, my passport.
What are some ways we can think about, I guess, valuing the access we have, but also like improving access? Because I think access is maybe it's the real differentiator out of those three. It's the thing you said is kind of a little more subtle. And to me, it's the most powerful. I think when we talk about making a 7-figure leap or a 10x leap, it's always about people. And, that's how we met, is through this like proximity principle and access in a sense. So I'd love to just camp out here just for a minute and talk about what you mean by high level access and maybe some more creative ways we could think about that. If we did have this freed up time, what could we be leveraging it against when it comes to high level access?
So I was in one of Perry Marshall's workshops long after this is when I was paying for his programs. Yeah. It's in Chicago, Oak Park, actually, I think. Yeah. And I'm looking around the room and I'm like, oh my word. I am the dumbest guy on any possible topic here. Like, I'm a good all around marketing guy. I know AdWords, at least at a basic level. I know landing pages. I know opt-ins. I know email marketing. I know, like, I'm a good all-around athlete. But in the room is like a guy who beat eHarmony as a solo PPC guy. He smashed eHarmony, and they had a team of like 25 people. And then I look to my left, and there's literally one of the most iconic copywriters. If I said his name, you'd be like, oh my word, he was in the room. And then I'm looking in front of me, and it's literally the guy who taught Perry AdWords. I'm like, I am walking around like a one-eyed guy in the land of the seeing here. So the lunchtime comes, and I notice that across the hallway, I don't remember exactly who was there, but it was like the Insurance Adjusters of America or something, because we're in this hotel conference room. Sure. Across the hallway, different ballroom. And it dawns on me, I could walk into that room. These people wouldn't have a damn idea how to install WordPress. You know what I mean? Right. And that's when it hits me that in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And so Perry's room's wonderful for friendship and, peer support and, trading ideas and talking shop. Pretty bad place for a guy who's in the bottom quartile on any given skill to try and find clients. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, one, how can I be the one-eyed man in the land of the blind? And two, what is the most expensive room I can afford? In three, an industry that I understand. Now, here I'd gone through the ringer with real estate investing, and there was this one particular investing club, Dustin, $300 per meeting. It was an annual membership, about $3,500. They did have a couple kind of like weekend workshops, but to me, it sure felt like $300 for a 4-hour meeting once a month. And I stride in there, and I'm telling you, within minutes, they think I'm a genius. So, and I had some good skills, and I knew the industry, and I had some track record. And of course, it made a lot of sense for them to feel inspired and motivated and helped, just from at the water stand at the back or on lunch break, just talking about what it is each other does. By the end of the very first meeting, the president of the whole club says, we got to talk. And I'm thinking, oh my word, like if he decides to have me speak to his group or something, now I have like hundreds of potential customers immediately. And by the third meeting, there was someone who owned some apartment buildings that said, hey, I've got a project in mind that's going to need some marketing. would you be interested in having a chat about that? Well, it turns out that I landed my first ever $28,000 marketing contract, right? So I would have never had that kind of access had I not had the time to shake the hands, learn the skills, make the money to be able to afford a $300 per meeting kind of club. And I've just repeated that over and over again. When I first moved to Austin, Texas, I knew 3 people in Austin. I started hosting private dinners. I had 8 new entrepreneurs and investors every other week for 2.5 years.
Wow, that's awesome.
So I ended up having dinner with 400 different entrepreneurs and investors. Pandemic hit, that shut that down. When pandemic started to lift, my business partner on that, his name's Tan, amazing guy over at asianefficiency.com. We decided to start hosting larger format socials. So we started hosting these larger format socials, 400 people, 500 people, 800 people start coming to these things. We get a DM after one of the parties, and they always had a theme, right? So the one party was like a Miami style white party. Everyone's dressing in all white. And one of them was called Fire and Ice, Boys in Blue, Girls in Red. And this is all online. I mean, you can go to Instagram.com/T&T present. You can watch the videos.
Love it.
Yep. And we get this DM from one of our attendees. She says, "Hey, you guys don't really know me, but I was at your Fire and Ice party. I've lived in Austin my whole life. It was the best party I've ever been to. I'm doing an event related to the United Nations. I need someone to design the VIP social. Could you guys help me with that?" I look at Dan. I'm like, "Yeah,
Of course.
And in the room at that VIP social was like billionaire families. Like, it was unbelievable, right? And as we're getting ready for that event, one of Gary Vaynerchuk's business partners moves to Austin, and he's asking around, who should I know downtown, right? And he hears about these dinners that this Tim and Tan guys are doing, and he hears about these socials, and there's this white party and this Fire and Ice. And so he comes to one of our events, approaches us, shakes our hand, and just says like, "Hey, can we talk?" And I'm like, "Sure." So we have coffee with them a few days later. I actually don't drink coffee. I had a fruit juice. I'm not Mormon. I've just never needed it. Clearly, I've got enough energy,
That's awesome.
And basically he says, I want to bring Gary to town. I am, new to town myself. So I just don't know, like, what should I do with him throughout the day? This isn't a media tour. This isn't a book tour. This isn't a speaking tour. This is a quiet networking opportunity for him to get to know more people in the city. Could you help me? And at one point I looked at him and I just said, "Do you want us to just plan the whole thing for you?" He's like, "I would really like that." So he basically just gave us Gary for the day. He said, "I'll give you Gary from something like 10 a.m. until 10 p.m. You can do anything you want, anywhere you want, with anyone you want." So Tan and I, we end up getting Gary lunch with the CEO of Whole Foods.
Wow.
91,000 employees, $17 billion in revenue on one side of the table. His name's Jason. On the other side of the table is Gary. And then Tan and I are just sitting there having lunch with him. Incredible, right? Incredible. By the end of the night, we done a handful of different events and whatnot. The final event was a 60-person, hand-selected, invitation-only group dinner. And at one point, I look at Tan and I'm just like, dude, if a bomb fell on this room, I mean, like, the assets under management had to be well beyond $50 billion, maybe 100. I don't know. But I'm telling you, Dustin, had a bomb fall in that room, like literally the stock market would have had a little like blip in it, So, that high level access is just such a rapid accelerator. And my assistant has just been so key at every single step along the way. Because she's in North America, she has the cultural intuition. There's no issues with language. She can easily talk to high level people. She's the one, every time I'm interviewed for different platforms or whatnot. She'll oftentimes work with the show producer or whatnot to get everything fully prepared. So guess what? I can be the surgeon in the room.
Absolutely.
Right? And in the meantime, you, Dustin, and me, Tim, we have high level access to each other. We are the surgeons. You can text me like, hey man, what do you think about this? Or, hey, I'm coming to town. Who should I meet? And the speed with which things can happen is just remarkable. So I think just the other day I had a client ask me, should I hand off my bank account? Should I hand off my email inbox? Should I hand off my passport? And I think it's a very personal question. I actually answered it's on our Great Assistant YouTube channel. It's called Get a Great Assistant is the YouTube channel. And there's I think a lot of fear for entrepreneurs, my former self included, around topics like inbox, calendar, and giving access to our assistant to all of that. And I think, hey, if we're gonna looking at the downside of what could happen if we hand off our, bank account, let's say, if we're going to take stock of the downsides, we also have to look at what are the downsides if I don't hand off my inbox, I don't hand off my bank account, my passport. And that's another form of access, right? If my assistant doesn't have my passport, she can't book flights or check me in. If my assistant can't get limited access, I'll be clear about that. It's not black and white. There's shades of gray, limited access to my bank accounts. She can't download bank statements and send them to the bookkeeper. She can't set up ACH transfers and other wires on my behalf. And I'm stuck doing all that stuff. So there is a trade-off, and everyone's going to make their own decision on what that looks like between the access we give our assistant and the freedom that we can have. Okay. Yeah. So I think also the last thing I'll just share on this is that I think every choice in business involves risk management. Who do I hire? What clients do I take on? What do I offer in the marketplace? And so there's no such thing as zero risk. Sitting at home doing nothing carries a risk of atrophying muscles and no physical activity, and we get sick, right? So it's about risk management. And I oftentimes think about what would have to be true for me to take this from feeling terrifying, like I'm going to jump the Grand Canyon, to how can I reduce that down to feeling like I'm just jumping over a pool? But then how can I reduce that down even more so it feels like stepping over a sidewalk crack? Maybe I might stub my toe, but if I do and I fall, I might skin a knee, but it's not going to be fatal per se, right? And so when I ask myself that question, what would have to be true such that this feels digestible? I went, once again, well, if I'm thinking about a credit card and a passport and a bank account, I don't know that someone from Pakistan, Venezuela, Philippines, India, is who I want to be working with on this part. Not because of them.